What's up, Dose of Dion? What's up, Red? Hey, my name is Michael Banks. Please vote for me every day at FordHallOfFans.com. Boot up.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are here with another draft profile, and today we're taking a look at a linebacker that a lot of you guys wanted me to do a video about. Okay, so I put in the community, I said, hey, who should we do a draft profile on next? And this player has been brought up a ton already, so I kind of anticipated this was going to be happening soon. But when I put that up, I would say a majority of the answers were Nakobe Dean, linebacker from Georgia. So that's who we're going to take a look at today, who some people think is the best linebacker in this draft class. We're going to take a look at Nakobe Dean today, and we're going to continue these, of course, throughout the offseason. So let's get it started.
The city's been down, and it found a way to get up. And when you knock us down, we're going to get up. And on the way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, all right? And we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. We're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome, everybody, to our video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, we're here to talk about a linebacker, our first off-ball linebacker video. We've talked about some outside linebackers, but not these off-ball linebackers. I'm excited for this positional group. Now, this is an area where I do believe the Lions will wait in the draft. All right, if we're talking draft specifically, I believe the Lions will wait a little bit at the spot, knowing Brad Holmes' past. We kind of touched on it in our video yesterday. We went through the Lions front 7. So if you want to know what the Lions have in house, contract-wise, who they're going to bring back, all of those things, check out yesterday's video. I know it's a long one, but it goes defensive line, then outside linebacker, then off-ball linebacker. So you could skip around a little bit in that video. Actually, I should put chapters on there. That's what I should put chapters on there. However, we're going to talk about one of the top linebackers to most people in this year's class. A guy that looks like he's probably going to end up being a first-round pick. I know a lot of Lions fans are looking at this as our second first-round pick. Maybe some people think we should trade up for him. Definitely don't think this is going to be happening at number 2. But like I said, I also think the Lions will wait on this positional group. But you never know. I mean, you really don't. So you got to be aware in case a guy like this falls, or if the Lions surprise us and they take him in the first round. You got to know who he is and what he's all about. So let's talk about Nakobe Dean. I don't know if he's, my top linebacker because I haven't went through a ton of other linebackers into detail like that. I was a pretty darn big Devin Lloyd fan from the film that I've already watched on him. However, we'll get to the ranking and rating at the end of the video. Let's break it down. Nakobe Dean, linebacker for the Georgia Bulldogs that was the Butkus Award winner this past season. That means he's the best linebacker in college football. That's the award. I actually don't know how they decide who gets that award. I'm assuming it's just people voting on it. It's probably the same people that do the college football playoff. I don't know for sure, but he did win that award, so congratulations. He's 6 foot 225 from Georgia, that crazy defense that they had. I mean, they have so many draft picks coming out of that defense. It's nuts. You almost get lost sometimes when you see how many players are actually going into the draft from that defense, and that could easily be top 3 round picks. But he's 6 foot 225. Immediately what sticks out there is the height, because yes, he's definitely on the shorter side, and it does stick out in film. It can lead to some possible limitations, but also some possible pros, I guess I would put it, because there's some natural things, some natural elements that brings to his game. He's been compared a lot to guys like Patrick Queen, Devin White. We'll get to that at the end of the video, but that's kind of been his comparisons because of his size. He's 21 years old. In this past season, he definitely had his best statistical season. As you can see, in 15 games played, they went all the way through the national championship, won the whole thing. 72 total tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 2 interceptions, and 5 passes defended. So not only was it a good year for him winning the Butkus Award, but it was also a good year for the defense, which is probably another part of the reason that he won that award, is because their defense was just insane this year. Now, I did want to throw in that in 2020, he did have a right shoulder injury. He ended up having surgery in the offseason for a labrum injury. So I want to throw that out there. You know that Alex Anzalone dealt with some shoulder injuries as well in his past. So I thought I would just throw it out there. I like to see a little bit of the injury background, and that's something that he has dealt with in the past. But I haven't heard anything about that since that time. If he was 6 foot 225 and he was slow, we'd have an issue here. But that's not the case with Dean, okay? He is a very fast, got a lot of juice. Now, he does take it to another level. I don't know where he's going to rank amongst linebackers in this draft class, what his combine will come out like, but I'm sure he'll be near the top. I mean, you look at our linebackers, like a Derek Barnes, you can tell he's our fastest linebacker just from watching him. He's not our smallest linebacker, but he's our fastest sideline to sideline, and it sticks out when you watch him. I'm going to assume Nakobe Dean is even faster than Derek Barnes. He's got the quickness to his game. So yes, he is fast. He stands out in that category. Okay. I don't want to just act like, well, he's quick. No, he's fast. Like he's on another level when it comes to that group. You would immediately see that in your linebacker room immediately when you put him in there. That's a very big pro for his game. All right. He is a a very good athlete, which leads to a lot of highlight plays, which makes him a very exciting player. Let's go through the run defense though. Pros, cons that I took away from his run defense. He's pretty darn good in this area. Let's start off with the first pro, which is the ability to read and find the hole like a ball carrier. All right, being 6 foot 225, I would say one advantage that it has is he's pretty low to the ground and he finds the holes like he's a running back. Reads his keys like he's a running back. You get a pulling offensive lineman, he's going to be sitting in that hole waiting for you. So that kind of anticipation leads to tackles for loss. It's why he had 10.5 of them. Also because of the scheme being that he is a gap shooter. He sees things develop. He can see them open up. Even if there is no pulling offensive lineman, you can see the gaps open up. An ability to beat the running back to his spot. He is a gap shooter defensively. So you're not going to want him picking up blocks at the second level very often. That will usually lead to an issue. Even blitzing to stop the run, you can do that because he can jump into a gap, explode through there. Sometimes he could beat offensive linemen through it just because he's too quick. They know he's coming, but he's too quick through there. At very least, he can usually force a cutback, force him not to go through that lane. Those are a couple things that immediately stick out when you watch him as a run defender. And he has that natural leverage. He plays with natural leverage. And it shows up in so many different aspects in his game. I don't want to just act like this is just like tackling. It shows up across his game is that he uses that leverage to his advantage. As a run defender, when being picked up with blocks, usually tight ends, lead running backs, things like that, he does struggle to disengage from them. He does play low on those guys, which does help him. Also, as a tackler, naturally, he's low to the ground. So when he's usually tackling guys, he's not getting up too high. There's a few examples running backs that get low and they can win the leverage battle on him, but usually he's winning that battle when it comes to a tackle. He's going to be lower than you are. He's going to put his shoulder down. You can see he's pretty technically sound. He breaks down as a tackler. You'll see him put his head to the side. You'll see him get his shoulder down. He can struggle picking up offensive linemen at the second level, disengaging, getting off of those blocks. He does attack. Okay, one thing I also wrote down, and I guess you could probably throw this into this category as well. I definitely put it as a blitzer, but fearless. The guy is absolutely fearless when attacking downhill. You need that mentality to play in that style of a defense. Kind of like, it reminds me like a Pittsburgh defense. Okay, we're going to blitz a ton. We're going to get downhill. We're going to get after you. We're going to make plays in the backfield. You're playing like that, you have to be fearless. You're going to take some blocks, you're going to take some licks, but you got to get back up. He took some smacks trying to attack, and I was like, dang, that hurt me watching it, but he gets right back up. Now, there are some cons within his game as well. As I said, when he's able to break down, he's a pretty technically sound tackler, all right? He's not going to get, lowering the head, helmet to helmet. He's not going to get those kind of tackles. However, he does have some missed tackles on his tape that you will find, and you'll find them in multiple games. You'll find missed tackles, and I think a lot of times it comes from a little bit of overrunning a play. And I think I saw this with JOK when he came out of Notre Dame, but this one's a little bit different because he kind of overruns a little bit and it can cause him to go by. He doesn't always get a good breakdown and he can kind of go by the ball carrier. And at that point, a lot of it's with his arms, misses tackles that way. So he does have a few too many missed tackles that is a little bit concerning in there. It's not crazy. I wouldn't say it's a red flag, but it does show up. And again, a lot of it I think is because he kind of overruns plays a little bit. Getting blocked at the second level is an issue. Yeah, he can get absolutely mauled by an offensive lineman. For him, his counter to this is using his agility, using his quickness to bend around offensive linemen. And he does that. He does, and he has that fearless approach. But if they get hands on him, they can kind of maul him and completely clear him and wipe him out of a play. So it's going to be very important that whatever defense he goes to, number one, either has a very big body defensive line that can handle those two gaps, keep their linebackers free. You need a good D-line. And what do you have at Georgia? He had an outstanding defensive line that could keep him clean, or you need him to constantly be shooting gaps. That way you're not having him sit and wait on picking up linemen at the second level. Think of a guy like Derek Barnes, right? That guy is super strong, 29 bench press reps. He's got the size. He can jolt offensive linemen back in the second level. That will not be the case for this linebacker. And I would say it's kind of similar, same thing as like a Jalen Reeves-Maybin. So you just got to keep that in mind of the situations that you put him in as a run defender. You probably improve here a little bit more using some of that agility to get off. Maybe sometimes he gets his hands on offensive linemen a little bit late.
I think his block shedding will need improvement. Here you can see that he allows the lead blocker to get his hands inside. He also gets his hands on late. He allows him to move him out of the play.
He doesn't have that great length. You see, give a guy like Barnes again, he's strong, but he also has really good length. That's just not the case for Nakobe Dean. Now, another con with his run defense, and some of this can be sometimes because he's just shooting a gap, he's blitzing, he's fighting to get into the backfield. So some of this isn't really net. He's not reading the play correctly because, again, he can find those holes. However, you can get him with misdirection, things behind the line of scrimmage, jet sweeps, fakes. Things behind the line of scrimmage can throw him off, and I think some of that has to do with height because he can't really see over the offensive line to see what's actually going on in the backfield. Can put him out of the play with some of the things behind the line of scrimmage. Also, Georgia's front four was really good, so the defensive line was really good. It was hard to just run directly at them. We saw a team like Michigan try to kind of play with inside the tackle box a little bit, and they didn't have a ton of success. I do like him as a run defender. I would say it's definitely a strong suit within his game. It's just you have to play him the right way. All right, you can't ask him to do things that he's just not suited for. Let's go to blitzing next. I think this is kind of the element that sort of describes his play style, right? We're talking about how he plays as a run defender because of his build, but this guy blitzes a ton. And that's why I brought up the stat at the beginning that the Lions were 9th last season in blitz rate percentage. And the Saints have been aggressive in the past. We saw it this past year. The Lions would line up linebackers over the A gaps, over the B gaps, show blitz. Sometimes they would blitz, sometimes they wouldn't. They like guys that can blitz. They'd have some versatility there where they'd stunt guys inside, outside.
So we had about 40 blitzes each for Jalen Reese-Maybin and Alex Anzalone this season. Now, we only had 11 blitzes from Derek Barnes, but I do expect that to go up as he gets more playing time and he's on more of those third downs. I think there was a development factor there where they want to be able to trust him on those passing downs because if you're going to be out there, you have to be able to help us in coverage as well. You have to be that threat. You can't just blitz the quarterback. So a play like this where Jalen Reese-Maybin is going to attack the A-gap.
Something that Dean has a ton of experience in is blitzing. They did it so much with Georgia, and that's why he had 6 sacks. Again, this is like some of the other linebackers around the league. I talk about some of those smaller linebackers that have come out recently, the Devin Whites, the Patrick Queens. Devin White, right? He had over 110 blitzes this past season. Ben, his biggest strength as a player in the National Football League is blitzing because that's where he can really stand apart. You have to play guys like this in a position to be successful. If I have him dropping all the time, sitting back, waiting on linemen, not attacking downhill, he's not going to be successful at the National Football League. As I said, fearless, it's actually the first thing that I wrote down as a blitzer. He will take some pops, but he comes in with absolutely no hesitation when it comes to attacking the backfield, attacking a quarterback, blitzing. What I really like about him is that he's able to use his size to his advantage. He does a really good job of playing half the man. His really big strength here would be his speed, his acceleration. So he plays a very quick game. He understands that his game is not getting picked up by a lineman and trying to disengage. So he's trying his best not to engage with an offensive lineman. Play half the man, play naturally low to the ground because, I mean, usually you're about half a foot shorter than most offensive linemen you're going against, maybe even more. Play low to the ground, play extremely explosive, take on high half the man, shoot the gaps extremely fast. He plays to his strengths as a player, and again, he is absolutely fearless when attacking. Now, the issue here is that if he does get picked up by an offensive lineman, he's pretty much taken out of the play. And that's actually further than just offensive linemen. Running backs the same way as well. Guys like Derek Barnes, if a running back tries to pick him up, he'll pick you up off the ground. I mean, simple as that. Now, Barnes, I don't think he has the same speed, but he's got the length. He's got the power when attacking, but not the same speed. So Dean does a really good job of playing it to his strengths. The best way to have him successful as a blitzer, and I know this is the case with a lot of guys, get him free. Double A gap blitz. Have him send him in as the second guy through. Sometimes they'll blitz him around the outside, trying to get him on an offensive tackle. Not because he has pass rush moves, but because he'll be able to use that bend. And if an offensive lineman comes in, not expecting anybody to hit his gap, and all of a sudden here comes Nakobe Dean around the corner, and he's real low below an offensive lineman's armpit, his shoulder, he's able to get into a backfield and explode back there. He absolutely has the closing speed for quarterbacks, whoever it is that tries to take off and scramble. If he is picked up by an interior offensive lineman, where you can't have a lot of success, he can draw interior offensive linemen out of their spot and make it really tough for the offensive line to pick up the second guy through. So if you do some twist in the interior, his speed, even if the offensive linemen know that he's coming, his speed draws offensive linemen out, and it could open up a very big gap for a second guy coming through to get some pressure. I mean, I'm going to be honest, I think on paper, blitz with Derek Barnes and Nakobe Dean, it would be pretty darn scary, all right, to have that element of both, where if I could send a guy like Nakobe Dean through first, draw attention of an offensive lineman, and then follow it up with a guy like Derek Barnes, right, on some kind of twist stunt in the interior, and have Derek Barnes at the very most picked up by a running back, where he's probably going to blow through that running back, that would be a scary tandem to send through an offensive line. So you want to be able to keep this guy clean. I know that's usually what you want to do with linebackers that are blitzing. But again, if he does get picked up, it's not like it's going to make him hesitate the next time around. He's going to come right back at it. Just simply having that threat out there where the offense, they may know he's coming, So they just have to be prepared for it. And a quarterback will have that on the back of the mind that, yeah, this guy is coming. But usually if he's picked up, he can be kind of taken out as a blitzer. I haven't really seen much success if it's like, wow, he got picked up by the running back, but he got off him and then made the sack. Usually don't see that very often unless the quarterback runs at him. Then, yeah, he can get off and get a sack. You do that, you can show him on the blitz, and he has a lot of experience dropping out of a blitz or showing a blitz and dropping into the curl area to the middle of the field.
Here you're going to get a cover 3 look defensively. Here you can see him showing the blitz where the arrow is pointing. That's Nakobe Dean. So you're going to get this cover 3 look defensively. Now, linebackers in this defensive play are going to be playing the whole defensively. Okay, so initially you're going to see him drop and follow the quarterback's eyes into this hook curl area. Then, as he passes into his teammate's zone and the quarterback's eyes leave that route, he then follows underneath to the shallow crosser to take that away. Next out here is his decisiveness on this. Versus 2020, where he could be a little more hesitant, he's very decisive in his zone responsibility.
You can line up at different spots, but I would say usually where you saw him line up the most was on the interior for Georgia. Let's move on to coverage. Coverage is an area that I guess it's depending on how you look at it. Some people may say this is an underrated aspect in his game. You may just assume, well, he's not good at coverage because he's short. That's not the case. But I've also seen some people, I think they kind of overrate him as a coverage guy. Like, man, he's locked down. Like, no, I don't think at all he's locked down. But he does have ability here. I don't think he's locked down at all in coverage. Let's start with man coverage, okay? Because this is an area where there's good and there's bad. With his speed, his acceleration, his ability to get from point A to point B extremely fast, his man coverage ability is actually not that bad. Now, there's limitations within this. They don't line him up man-to-man on tight ends. So that seems to clearly be a limitation, and it makes sense. I mean, I could tell you without seeing him line up on tight ends, because I really didn't see it that much, that this is probably going to be an issue within his game, just because of the size factor. I mean, you put him on a guy like Hawkinson, it could be an issue, whether that's him sitting down and just boxing out Nakobe Dean, him just having the height advantage where if you throw a jump ball to him, there could be a lot of issues within that. Now, where he does do well in man coverage is he has that speed. We see it all the time. Teams go to empty. They put their running back completely on the outside, and they try to get him lined up one-on-one with the linebacker. We were burned on this a few times this year. One that comes to mind immediately was Jalen Reeves-Maybin. You guys remember that? I think that was Baltimore? Maybe not. It was the home game. Jalen Reeves-Maybin one-on-one on the running back, does a double move, and he completely burns Jalen. One-on-one. Teams love to do that. Get their guy one-on-one on the outside with the linebacker, and that's where the ball usually is immediately going. I think they did the same thing to Derek Barnes. They did it to Alex Anzalone, and against the Vikings, it was out of bounds. Teams love to do this. Especially teams like the Packers, who have a guy like Aaron Jones who catches the ball very well, and A.J. Dillon, I think he catches the ball pretty well too. When they had Jamal Williams, he catches the ball well. This is an area where he can have a very big strength, and he could be very beneficial for us. He has really good speed, where you can't just run a vertical route against him and have your running back completely burn him. That's usually not going to be the case. He has as much speed as most running backs that line up against him. So you're not going to have that clear advantage where it's like, oh, I got him one-on-one, I'm just going to run deep. That's not going to be the case with Nakobe Dean.
Here's a play I really like. Nakobe Dean's at the bottom of the screen here. He's going to have no help. Safety's going to slide down, take the tight end. They're going to bring a blitz. So he's one-on-one. He's going to slide some inside leverage here because he has no help to the inside. But what really sticks out to me on this play is, first off, of course, the long speed. There's no cuts, there's no breaks here. But also, notice how he gets his head turned around as soon as the running back looks back for the football. All right, it's really well done. Now, there's no cuts, there's no breaks here, but this is a spot where he has a nice foundation to build off of, and teams can't just exploit this weakness if you're trying to play a lot of man coverage, because you can ask him to take these responsibilities of, hey, go take the running back out wide. I've seen teams line up the running back out wide, then motion him back in when they saw Dean had him.
He also has the ability in flat routes against man coverage. Most of his man coverage, I would say like 99% of his man coverage assignments were simple. Follow the running back. And that exciting play against Michigan that he had, where people are like, dang, look at that play against Michigan. You see how he got out there and tackled Blake Corum? Well, he lined up man-to-man on Blake Corum. And all Corum did was motion to the opposite side, tried to basically run a quick little screen to that side of the field. He followed him across. You saw the sideline-to-sideline speed, but it wasn't like he diagnosed. He was just playing man-to-man coverage, and he made a good play in space. That's the responsibility that they give him in man coverage. They can line up at slot, they can line up on the outside, but that's where he'll play in man coverage. And he has really good speed. So if you try to run a basic flat route against him, he's going to close that gap really fast. So a lot of times quarterbacks don't even test him because of how fast he gets his way out there. So these basic little routes, where usually you can sometimes just beat speed because our guy can't get out there fast enough, or he's got so much room, he's got to travel through traffic. That really won't be an advantage anymore with this player, which is one of the best benefits I see within his game. All that I have to throw here in coverage is that I wrote it as it's hard to catch him slipping. I'm sorry. I don't know why I wrote it like that. But my point is basically there is that you give him an assignment, you give him a responsibility, he's not really going to be thrown off or distracted by something else. As I said with the run defense, things in the backfield, they can throw him off. He can get out of place because sometimes he can't see exactly what's going on. Coverage, he's really hard to kind of fake, especially once things get outside the tackle box and he can see everything. He doesn't really come off his assignment, which is good, right? He's in man coverage here. This movement is not going to throw him off. He's locked into what his job is. If this is my zone, that's where I'm going to be. So he doesn't really get caught slipping that often, okay? You can't really get him out of position too often. Really good at playing his assignment, playing his role, and that's why you see some of those plays like the play against Michigan. He had the same similar type of play against Kentucky on a screen where it was like, hey, your guy's the running back. And they got all this movement going around on one side of the field, and everybody's going that way, but then you have Nakobe Dean who's like, I got the running back. He would not leave. He just sat there as like the only guy on the defense, waited for the screen, and made a play. He was the only guy on that side of the field, but he didn't get faked by any of the movement. None of that. When you got teams like the Packers, Niners that do all this pre-snap stuff, it's kind of nice to have that. Hey, here's your job. Here's your keys. Don't get fooled by this eye candy. The time he'll get fooled is if he can't see it or if it's post-snap, jet sweeps, things like that. But pre-snap, that eye candy's not going to fool him. Action-wise, you know, on the fly, your quarterback takes off, or he's got a running back assignment. The running back doesn't come out of the backfield, so he automatically transitions that. I'm going to go get the quarterback. Also does a pretty good job because he's very reactive, quick to respond, where a guy making a subtle movement, like going to quickly going to pass the football, he's going to quickly get his hands up and knock that thing down. All right, so he's very, very quick reactions. He's like a cat. Now, as man coverage, I don't want to act like he's locked down in man for linebacker because I don't think he is. Running back can bust out some moves. A Theo Riddick, you know, that kind of back that can come out wide, set a double move, come out of cuts, breaks, that has a little bit more than just running straight or running to a flat. That's where you can see some issues with him in coverage. He gets extremely handsy, very grabby. I saw a couple flags on this where he'll grab guys coming in out of breaks. Sometimes I don't even think he needs to. I think this could definitely develop, though, over the years with his ability where he could get much better in this area. He's good at the basic stuff now, but when a guy brings in a cut, something like that, then you can see some issues with him sticking with guys. You'll see some flags because then he'll start to grab. You do like that he sticks with routes, all right? He doesn't give up on routes as you shouldn't. If you're man-to-man and my guy stops running, I'm going to be very mad at him. But he does stick with plays, which has led to 2 interceptions, one against Florida and one against Auburn. The one pop off his hands and he picked it off. He has his 2 interceptions, basically like that.
This clip came out super blurry, but Nakobe Dean is lined up on the running back here. They put their receiving back in the game, and this is another one of those examples of just covering the flats. And it's just that speed to get out there where most quarterbacks will hesitate to throw this pass. Now he's got to work through some traffic because you have the slant route, so it's going to give him some space to get this ball out there. But it's just a pure athleticism, so I mean sticking with the play. But I love the way that he comes up with this football. I mean, it's not a bad pass. It's a drop. It's tip up in the air. But to lay out and make this play on the ball, it was pretty darn impressive. So you're not seeing these plays necessarily in zone coverage. The 2 plays that we saw were both made in man coverage. However, opportunistic, and then you could just see the pure athleticism there. That's tough. That's really tough. That looks like an easy pass. All of a sudden, you get one little mistake, and it turns into that. Now, the Florida one was a little bit different. The running back just sat down in the flats. It was an awful decision by the quarterback. He threw a way too soft ball to the flats, way too much field. Nakobe Dean jumped it and picked it off and took it back home for 6. He's got too much speed. You're not going to catch that guy. I do believe this Florida pass was just really bad. It was late. It was way too high. It is nice to see Nakobe Dean make a play like this, get his hands on the football, but also finish the play, of course, because in 2020, we saw him didn't get his hands on any footballs in the passing game. See, to me, this is a development of instincts, decisiveness, and just a playmaking in coverage here, okay? Watch Nakobe Dean at the bottom. I know you're thinking, why is this black and white? I know, it's goofy. But you see how as soon as the running back turns for the football, he immediately jumps down to make a play? Now, of course, that can be susceptible to double moves, but for a running back to be decisive like that, to get his hands on the football by reading the running back, and we saw that clip earlier, him running long with the running back downfield. That's improvement.
And being a little bit more decisive in pass coverage does stick out, and you saw it on 2 plays in man coverage specifically where he stuck with the play, and this one was nice. It was a little bit less hesitancy from his game, which is a nice improvement step to make you feel good about his growth going forward.
Now, I think a lot of times teams do this just to try to get a tell on the defense, especially with a team like Georgia that plays as much man as they do. Motion running back out. Okay, linebacker follows. They're playing man coverage. We'll bring him back in, and we'll change the play, or we'll call the play, whatever they were going to do. But I have seen teams like this motion their running back out wide, see see that Nakobe Dean goes out and takes him and then change the play. I don't know for sure if that's because of Nakobe Dean going out there, but you do want to believe that sometimes that happens because they're saying, okay, one-on-one with Dean, we may actually not have the advantage there that we thought we could have if this was something different defensively. So I thought that would just at least throw this in here.
There's still improvement that needs to be made here for him to be great in this area, but I wouldn't say it's a bad starting spot. It's really not, because you can't do some of the basic stuff we've seen guys try to do against us and have success like they've had against us in the past. Zone coverage is a little bit different. He doesn't do as much zone coverage as he does man coverage, usually lining up on running backs one-on-one on a tight end. You're going to have issues with size. They never really did it with him. Zone coverage went a little bit different. I saw him play a lot less in zone coverage, but he definitely has defeat for zone. My biggest concern for him is zone coverage, again, is height. I hate to keep bringing up the height. I know he can't control it, but it does come up as a concern for me over the middle, playing a lot of zone coverage. That's mainly where his zone coverage drops, where you didn't get him dropping into the flats very often in his zone. You didn't get him dropping to outside the tackle box. Usually his zone drops were the middle of the field. Now, he definitely showed the ability to drop deep into zone coverage. He could drop 15, 20 yards. His back pedal is pretty darn smooth. You saw it because he had a lot of work of this, faking a blitz, dropping back into zone coverage, keeps his head on a swivel, which you absolutely like. They didn't really test him a ton over the middle, but I think that could change in the NFL against zone coverage. One of my favorite aspects is him on shallow crossers, because he can pass off linebackers extremely effortlessly, pick them up and follow them and drag them along the play, and really there's no chance for a quarterback to hit that because of how tight he can play on those. Good communication skills with his linebackers already. He's already playing similar to like our guys, two inside linebackers, where pass these routes off. So that would fit in immediately with how we like to do things defensively. Dragging routes, crossers, anything like that. He's usually got pretty darn good communication. He's got pretty good feet. Now, there's a couple times we're off his back pedal, then trying to click, close, and come downhill. A bit delayed, trying to stop his momentum and then get back upfield. But for the most part, he's low to the ground, so it's pretty easy for him to change directions like that. See him make many plays in zone coverage, but at the same time, again, he didn't really get tested a ton in zone coverage, but also he played a lot more man coverage. Usually there was two things. When they were passing the ball, it's usually he's going to be lined up one-on-one on the running back, or he blitz. It was usually those two roles. Then a few times you see some zone mixes over the middle of the field. But again, height does concern you a little bit. So credit to Georgia. They just played to the guy's strengths.
Now, you don't really ever want your linebacker on a receiver, but here you can see Nakobe Dean in this man coverage assignment, who's going to follow number 11 out of the backfield and up the seam. But you just see that ability, all right? Just the athleticism to get connected, get his head turned around, kind of get his hand on the receiver. I mean, he plays this really well. Again, there's no cuts, there's no breaks here, but that athleticism definitely sticks out as something that can be built upon. Again, the weakness here would be his size, but he's not a liability.
He's like a very high IQ type of player. A lot of communication going on pre-snap before for Nakobe Dean. He could handle the green dot responsibilities. Lions said Derek Barnes will be the Mike. Derek Barnes will probably become the green dot, being that it's year 2 for him. But this is a player that definitely could play alongside him. I could absolutely see that he'd be playing that kind of Jalen Reeves-Maben type of role within this defense. Plus, there is a little bit of versatility with his ability on obvious passing downs, get on an edge and rush. It's just they didn't do it as much as they would line him in the outside and stun him to the edge. He can line up on the edge, but there's not a lot out of that unless he's, again, just following a running back. But at that point, you want him over the middle in case he goes out, a different direction. Congratulations on winning the Butt Kiss Award. He's a fun player to watch. Within this defense, we need our D-line to be eaten. As simple as that. This D-line's got to eat. All right, Georgia's defensive line was really good. Really good. And it allowed him to play his game. Plus, they played extremely attacking defensively. The Lions did play, at times this season, more patient in the linebacker room where guys would wait. Patience that sometimes they would play with their linebackers. It's going to be important that your D-line can hold their 2-gap responsibilities. They're going to have to be able to do that. So your D-line needs to be stout for this guy to really thrive. Be a scheme fit. I wouldn't say he's a perfect scheme fit, but I think he could fit what we're trying to do defensively. Again, kind of playing that Jalen Reeves-Maben type of role next to Derek Barnes. It's kind of a cool thing to think about. One of my big concerns comes with him is that you look at guys like a Patrick Queen, like a Devin White. They've honestly kind of struggled early in their careers in the NFL. I mean, Patrick Queen at one time this year by the Ravens fan site was named the biggest disappointment of 2021 so far. The concern with guys like this is that there are those limitations, and you have to play them to their strengths, or you need a really good defensive line as well that can hold their own. Where those guys have thrived is blitzing and pass rushing. But aside from that, that, they've had inconsistencies as run defenders, missing tackles. You've seen him in coverage where they've had inconsistencies there as well. So I don't know where he's going to rank amongst my off-ball linebackers. I did really like, Devin Lloyd a lot. I don't think the Lions are going to go this high for a linebacker anyway. I would be pretty shocked, actually, if he fell to our second round first pick. I would be pretty shocked. I've seen some people mock him inside the top 10. I get the excitement with these players. They can be successful. We've seen it. But you look at teams like the Saints, right? Demario Davis, they bring in Zach Bond. I would like a little bit more height here. Again, nothing against him. I like a little bit more height for some of the responsibilities, but he is a very explosive and dynamic playmaker. No question about that. There's just things that you're going to have to be able to do because you can't put him into any situation. He's going to be great. He's a very high football IQ. There's a couple plays in there where you'll see him and he kind of knows what's coming because he's seen the play on film before. So you can tell he's really locked into what's going on schematically. I'm going to put him at a... Man, it really does depend on the defense that you put him in. As of now, I'm going to put him as a 7 point. I'm going to give him like a 7.4, 7.5. Let's go. I'm going to give him like a 7.4. A 7.4. Let's put him in the good category, nearing that great category. But I'm going to put him in that good category right now. 7.4 is subject to change as I continue to watch him and going forward closer to the draft and we start to get to see other off-ball linebackers and we see the combine scores, things like that. I love the guy's athleticism. I think he's a very smart player. Communication skills are on point. I think he could slide in, become a day one starter. I absolutely think he could play that Jalen Reeves-Maybin type of role. He does a really good job of understanding his limitations. Now, I would like a little bit more height for that position. Not saying you need it, but I would like a little bit more height with how patient the Lions have played their inside linebackers in the past, dropping them into zone coverage. You look at a team like the Saints, they got Demario Davis, and then they also have a Zach Bond who's 6'3". I like a little more height, and that's nothing against this guy because he's really good. I just don't think the Lions will go this high, and I do prioritize other positions a little bit first. I think if he had a terrible defensive line in Georgia, he still would have been a good player, but you wouldn't have noticed him as much. I do think it's very important that your D-line is built first, and I would go with that higher pick before I went with an inside linebacker. I do think there's limitations within his game. If he was sitting there at my second first round pick, would I take him? It does depend on who else is there. I don't think that I'd be rushing to put the card in to go get Nakobe Dean. I think it would be a kind of a cool concept to put him with our linebackers if you played to their strengths. And I also think with that spot, there's other options for us. I do think it's very important to have a very good D-line, and that's where it starts. I also believe that Brad Holmes is going to prioritize trenches, outside linebacker, D-line, secondary, before he goes off-ball linebacker. So I don't think we'll go this high for that position anyway. But he is an exciting prospect. You look at that Michigan game, which a lot of people are hyped about because, he made plays in there and all of us were watching it as Lions fans. A lot of us were watching the game. So that's like, whoa, hold up. Who is this guy? And you saw the sideline to sideline. You saw, the ability to read holes, and then you saw, of course, just the natural athleticism there. But there's limitations within his game, and you got to put him in the right style of defense. So I think it could work, but I wouldn't say it's a perfect scheme fit right now. I wouldn't say it's perfect. So I'll give him a 7.4 overall as a prospect. Puts him in that good category. This could definitely change as we go on. Let me know what you guys want to see next as a draft profile. Give me a grade down below. Thank you, Pride, for watching, and I'm out.